Welcome or welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to Whiskey and the Word, episode 2. I want to talk today about a little bit more on why I'm doing this Whiskey and the Word series. And we're going to taste some Highland Park Viking's Honor 12-year. This stuff is a Highland single malt scotch, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. What I want to talk about up front is the fact that I believe personally that every human being is made to worship. I think that's why there's such a proclivity in the history books of all the different religions, all the different things that people have sought out over the years, over the centuries, the way that people are just seemingly hardwired to worship. And if you're not religious, that's totally fine. I think a lot of people worship a lot of things. There's people who worship success, money. There's people who worship themselves with just all the pleasures that they're focused on achieving and racking up and experiencing. You've got people who are focused on worshiping their children. They don't even realize they're doing it, but they put the children at the tip top of their life, or maybe a spouse. I think this is just a natural hardwired thing. And I remember my grandmother telling me when I was a teenager and into my early 20s, at almost 18 years old, I really splurged and got a car that I really could not afford. And I loved washing it, and I loved modifying it, and I loved, doing this, that, and the other with it. The year was 2001. It was a 99 Trans Am. I was in love with that thing. Some might say I was worshiping it. And I would never say that, but my grandmother would tell me that I was. And it always got on my nerves. But looking back on it, that car consumed so much of my time, effort, money, attention, and it was the most dominant thing. That and my friends and all the experiences I could have with my friends with that car, that was the foremost thing in my life at that point in time. And it definitely was an idol in my life. Looking back on it, my grandmother knew exactly what she was talking about, which is something I've learned in adulthood, that she knew a lot of what she was talking about. But I say all that to say that we're hardwired to look for things to latch onto and devote our time, effort, attention, energy, money, resources, all that stuff. We do it naturally. We all do it. And if you're relying on stuff or money or success, all those things are fleeting. If you're relying on yourself and your own understanding, good luck. I mean, I definitely do wish the best for you. I've leaned on that a lot in my past, and it led me through hell and back. I mean, it led me through some of the worst situations, some of the worst decisions that I could have made. Even though I felt like I was doing the right thing, it ended up in catastrophe. And that was really hard for me. It's really hard when you do what you think is for the best and things still blow up in your face, whether it be because you fall short and fail, whether it be because someone else makes poor decisions and ends up letting you down, or, it could be a number of things that things don't end up the way that you want them to. But what I've found over the course of my life is that, not from a religious standpoint of like going to church and worshiping, I'm talking about a personal relationship with the maker and creator of the universe. When I'm plugged into that, my higher power, my God, when I am plugged into that relationship and I'm leaning on that and worshiping in reverence to God and trusting in His plan for my life and the lives of those people around me, even though it might not always be good, maybe there's something that I want and the outcome goes a different way. The fact that I trust in God and the fact that I lean on Him means I don't have to worry about what the outcome is, because I know it's going to lead to something better. And I want to read something here, but let's go ahead and get into this Viking Honor real quick. Highland Park, great distillery from the Highlands, but it's actually from an island, and it is, where's it at? Orkney Islands. So this is a 43% single malt Scotch whiskey, 12 years old. This was a bottle that was gifted to me by a friend years ago. So I don't know if the current on the shelf version would be quite similar or not, but This was one of the first scotches that I ever tasted, and I loved it. And I love international whiskey, so sometimes we will cover international whiskey on here. So cheers. And this is this is what I love about international whiskey, because this thing is so fruity, like a fresh fruit note, almost like a pear type of note. Juicy too, almost like juicy fruit gum. It's so sweet. And there's a slight hint of like this waft of smokiness on the air that's in this as well. Almost buttery as well. Cheers. Oh man, it's been a long time since I've had this. It's just lovely. 43% ABV. It's really light on the palate, but you definitely get that juiciness. You get that fruitiness. You get a little bit of like a honey type of note in there as well. You get that slight touch of smoky brininess. That's really nice. One more sip. Second sip, the flavors build on themselves. You get a little bit more of those darker notes from the barrel, the 12 years. I don't know. I didn't look this up. I think this is entirely ex-bourbon maturation. It tastes that way. It kind of has that a little bit of like a caramel, vanilla type of note in there. And then that smokiness. For a 12-year-old Scotch, I looked this up before recording this. This was $62 in our local store. If I went out and bought one right now, worth every penny for like a good low ABV, flavorful Scotch that you could just enjoy anytime. You can let this disappear in the background while you're doing something else, or you could have it be the star of the show by focusing on the flavors. Very high value for a good 12-year starter Scotch. Really, really enjoy this. Would highly recommend it. Glad to have a bottle, and will replace this bottle when it's done and gone. So that speaks volumes as to how I feel about something, if I would actually replace it with my own money. All right, speaking of worshiping things, here is why, and I mentioned this last week, that by surrendering and living my life in the direction of God and in the direction of Jesus, to be a Christian to me again is to be Christ-like, to try to be as much like Christ's example that he set for us as possible. And by doing that, it pushes my thought process that direction, and I constantly make sure that I am thinking about that, and it's a part of my life. I incorporate it into my life, much the same way as being a married man. All the decisions that I make feed back into the fact that I am a married man, and I do have a spouse that I have to think about. Being a father, all the decisions I make ultimately are going to impact my daughter. So just like that, just like being a father and my decisions impacting my daughter, being a married man, being a husband, my decisions impact my wife, being a follower of Christ, I have to think about that in everything I do. I have to carry it with me. It's a part of my identity as much as, or more than, the fact that I'm a husband and a father. Like I own that. I take that on. It's something I wear at all times. And there are plenty of times where I mess up and act in ways that are definitely not Christ-like. But at the end of the day, for me, it all boils down to a few things. And one of them is God's peace in my life when I'm living in his will for my life and his purpose for my life. And I'm not worried about if it's going to be under my own power or not. It just takes that worry off my plate. It takes that burden and that anxiety off my plate. And I'm going to read Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. And this is such a good passage of scripture. It is so true. And it's something that you can read this and you can just gloss over it, or you can read it and take it to heart. And when you read this, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want this. A lot of people think about being a Christian and all that stuff as like going to church and trying to get into heaven. Heaven will be the goal at the end. It'll be the reward at the end. But heaven is not what I need. I need help here on earth every single day. So Paul is writing this letter to the Philippians, and he says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Worship, you're worshiping. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And here's the biggie right here. So, actually, before I get into the biggie, don't be anxious. Just pray about it with thanksgiving. And then if you do that, this is what happens. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Here's what it doesn't say. It doesn't say if you pray about everything and you're not anxious about anything, everything's going to work out for the best. It doesn't say you're going to get what you pray for. A lot of times the unanswered prayers are the biggest blessings in your life, or the biggest teaching moments, or the biggest growth moments in your life. But it says, if you lay down your anxiety, lay down your will, lay down what you're trying to accomplish and what you think is the best thing to do, in every situation, pray. God, what do you want for me in this? Where are you at in this? How can I show up in this moment? And how can you show up through me in this moment, in this situation in my life? And by doing that, you will receive the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations in my life where I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand why they're doing that way. I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand the results. I don't understand the thought process. I don't understand how they could even do that. That seems so obviously off base. Why? But it's not for me to figure out. I want the peace of God that transcends all understanding. And then that will guard my heart and my mind. So instead of my mind going off and wandering or worrying, or my heart starting to turn and get angry and vicious towards people that are maybe doing things in my life, I don't have to worry about any of that. I just get to lay it all down. Just lay it all down. Turn it over to God, and I get peace in return. So I don't know about you, but at least in my life, I am prone to anger. I'm prone to overreaction. I'm prone to being defensive. I would much rather just be at peace. And I do that by turning it over to God through prayer, petition, with thanksgiving. And there's more to the verses here that go through verses 9 and 10. And he tells people what to do. If you want practical application, yeah, prayer and petition with thanksgiving. That'll get you there. And this is your outcome from that. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Stay positive. Don't dwell on the negative. Get off of the news cycle. I mean, keep up with it to know what's going on, but don't just fester in it. If you're hanging around negative people, find new people to hang around with. And if those negative people are your family members, start praying. Start praying. They need it. You need it. Everybody needs it. Living a negative life is no way to live. And then he says in verse 9, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And Paul's talking about himself. Like, Paul's trying to live as a good example, which I think is a good thing for us all to do. And then he ends it, and the God of peace will be with you. Love that. I need peace. I need peace. I think we all need peace. The world's only getting crazier by the day, it feels like. Lay it down. Rest. I pray that for you. I pray that for myself. I pray that for my family all the time. And I need it. And if you're watching this, I can only assume, because I know God He works in mysterious ways. If you're watching this, maybe you watch some of the other videos on the channel, maybe the last Whiskey in the Word, episode 1. If you're not about all this stuff, maybe you tuned out, maybe you're out of here. But if you're watching this for the first time, I have to assume it's because God led you here, and I'm not a trained person. I'm just a guy trying to figure it out. And I'm never going to figure it out without this. And it's not my job to figure it out. That's what this just said. I don't have to worry about it. So it's all right here. And yeah, I hope this encourages you. I hope it meets you where you're at. I hope it points you in a good direction. You don't have to shoulder the burdens of your life yourself. You know, you have a good God who's there to be with you through it all. And, you know, if you don't have a problem with it and you can enjoy a pour, if you're a whiskey person, you know, a lot of people watching this are from mine and my wife's whiskey YouTube channel. Sit down with a glass, sit down with the word, meditate, enjoy, and see where that takes you. I promise. If you just stay tethered right here, and you stay tethered right here, it makes all the difference in the world. So, hope you're well. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next time. Cheers.